Chapter 1. Prelude. There comes a time in your life when you realize that the biggest battle you are fighting isn't with the world, your circumstances, or other people. The biggest battle is with yourself. You are the mountain that stands in your way. Every fear that holds you back, every doubt that keeps you frozen, every limiting belief that keeps you repeating the same patterns, all of that comes from within. This realization isn't easy to accept, but it is liberating. Because if the problem is you, that means you are also the solution. You may have spent years feeling stuck, unable to make lasting changes no matter how hard you try. You may have cycled through patterns of procrastination, destructive habits, or low self-worth. At times, you may have believed that you were lazy or incapable, but that's not the truth. The truth is that your subconscious mind is incredibly powerful, and if it feels unsafe to change, it will find ways to keep you exactly where you are, even if where you are is painful or unfulfilling. That's what self-sabotage really is. It's not just you working against yourself. It's your mind doing everything it can to protect you from pain, even if it's outdated pain or imagined pain. Your subconscious isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to shield you. The problem is that it's working off old information. Somewhere along the way, your mind learned that discomfort equals danger, and now it's trying to keep you in your comfort zone, no matter the cost. But you don't have to stay stuck. The mountain isn't an impossible obstacle. It's a mirror. Everything you are resisting is showing you exactly what you need to heal. Every fear is revealing what you need to face. Every frustration is showing you where you need to grow. Your mountain is asking you to become something greater than you are right now. And if you answer that call, you will not only reach new heights, you will become the person you are meant to be. Growth isn't comfortable. It requires you to face your fears, sit with your pain, and confront the parts of yourself you'd rather avoid. It asks you to break free from old patterns that once felt familiar and safe. This process can feel like loss, and in some ways, it is. You are letting go of a version of yourself that you've outgrown, but what you gain in return is something infinitely greater: strength, clarity, and a life that is built on authenticity rather than fear. The truth is, you can't outrun your mountain. No matter how many distractions you create, how many coping mechanisms you turn to, or how many external changes you make, your internal struggles will follow you. They are part of you, until you decide to face them. The longer you avoid your pain, the louder it will become. The more you ignore your fears, the more power they will have over you. But when you finally choose to turn toward them, something incredible happens. You start to reclaim your power. Facing your mountain doesn't mean trying to conquer it in one day. It means starting where you are. It means listening to the thoughts that scare you, feeling the emotions you've been suppressing, and taking one step at a time toward the life you know you're meant to live. It's about learning to trust yourself again, to know that you are strong enough to handle whatever you find on the other side. Self-mastery isn't about perfection. It's about resilience. It's about knowing that even when you fail, and you will fail, you can begin again. It's about learning to see your setbacks, not as evidence that you're incapable, but as proof that you're still learning. Every struggle you face is teaching you something you need to know. Every disappointment is shaping you into someone stronger. Every failure is showing you what doesn't work and pointing you toward what does. The mountain is your proving ground. It's where you learn to trust yourself. It's where you discover what you're really capable of. And it's where you realize that your strength was never in avoiding challenges. It was in facing them. You were not meant to stay small. You were not meant to live in fear. You are not meant to settle for a life that doesn't fulfill you. The discomfort you feel is not a mistake. It's your soul calling you toward something greater. And that something greater is you. The you that exists on the other side of your fears. The you that is brave enough to climb the mountain. The you that is capable of turning pain into power and fear into fuel. This is not just a journey of change. It's a journey of becoming. It's about learning to break free from old stories that no longer define you. It's about letting go of the version of yourself that was built on fear and stepping into the version of yourself that is built on love, courage, and purpose. Your mountain isn't in the way. It is the way. The obstacles you face are not detours. They are stepping stones. The struggles you faced are not punishments, they are preparations. Everything you've been through has been shaping you for this moment, the moment when you finally choose to rise. You don't need to know every step before you begin. You don't need to have all the answers or feel fully prepared. All you need to do is take one step and then another. Trust that with each step, you are learning. Trust that you are growing. Trust that you are becoming stronger than you ever believed possible. Chapter 2. You are your greatest obstacle. There is a mountain inside you, one that stands between where you are and where you want to be. This mountain is not just a set of obstacles in your life. It's a reflection of your fears, doubts, and past experiences. Every piece of resistance you feel, every excuse you make, and every moment of hesitation stems from this mountain. The mountain isn't an accident. It's built from years of coping mechanisms, buried emotions, and limiting beliefs that you've carried with you. At some point, these things were your protection. They kept you safe when you didn't have the tools to process your pain. But over time, those defenses have become the very things that hold you back. The patterns that once protected you are now preventing you from becoming the person you're meant to be. Your mountain is unique. It's shaped by your experiences, your wounds, and your deepest fears. It's made up of the moments when you doubted yourself, the times you gave up on something important, and the pain you never allowed yourself to fully feel. Each part of your mountain has a purpose. It's there to show you what still needs to be healed. You may feel overwhelmed when you face this mountain. It can feel impossible to climb, too big, too complicated, too deeply rooted. But the truth is, this mountain exists because you're strong enough to climb it. The fact that it's here means you're ready. If you weren't, it wouldn't feel this urgent. The discomfort you're experiencing isn't a mistake. It's your body, mind, and heart telling you that you're ready for change. You don't need to tear down your mountain overnight. You don't need to force yourself to rush to the top. Instead, you need to understand it. You need to learn what it's made of, what fears, beliefs, and memories have formed its structure. Every stone that makes up your mountain has a story. Until you acknowledge those stories, you'll keep repeating the same cycles. The parts of you that cling to old patterns aren't bad or broken. They're just trying to keep you safe. When you learned to shut down your emotions, it was because you didn't know how to handle them. When you avoided risks, it was because you'd been hurt before. When you turned to distractions or self-sabotaging behaviors, it was because they felt like the easiest way to escape your pain. These reactions weren't wrong. They were just incomplete. They helped you survive, but they won't help you thrive. Climbing your mountain means facing the emotions you've avoided. It means revisiting the painful memories you've buried and finding a way to process them. It means learning to let go of the version of yourself that was built on fear and building a new foundation on strength and purpose. It's not easy. There will be moments when it feels like the mountain is pushing back, like you're fighting against something far stronger than you. But the mountain isn't fighting you. It's waiting for you. It's waiting for you to realize that the strength you've been looking for has been inside you all along. Every fear you face will make you stronger. Every time you step outside your comfort zone, you're reshaping the mountain, turning obstacles into stepping stones. You'll know you're growing when the things that once triggered you no longer hold the same power. The pain that used to consume you will begin to fade. The habits that kept you stuck will lose their grip. Slowly, you'll realize that what felt impossible is now within your reach. The climb isn't just about reaching the top. It's about who you become along the way. Every step is a chance to prove to yourself that you are stronger than you believed. Each step teaches you resilience, courage, and self-trust. The process may be painful, but it's shaping you into someone who no longer needs to escape or avoid their life. It's shaping you into someone who can face challenges with clarity and calm. You may not know exactly how to climb your mountain right now. That's okay. The most important thing is that you start. Start by being honest with yourself about what's holding you back. Start by acknowledging the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. Start by deciding that you're ready to change, even if you don't know how yet. Your mountain is not an enemy. It's not something you need to destroy or conquer. It's a part of you that's asking to be understood, healed, and transformed. As you climb, you'll discover that the mountain isn't just an obstacle, it's a guide. It's showing you exactly what you need to learn. It's teaching you who you are capable of becoming. When you finally reach the top, you won't just be standing above your old fears. You'll be standing in your own strength. You'll realize that the mountain was never there to stop you. It was there to make you rise. Chapter 3. Your mind isn't against you. It's easy to believe that you are your own worst enemy. When things fall apart, when you can't seem to follow through on your goals, or when you make choices that undermine your success, it feels like you are working against yourself. But the truth is, what we call self-sabotage isn't really self-sabotage at all. It's self-protection. Everything you've done, even the choices that hurt you, has been your mind's attempt to keep you safe. At some point in your life, you learned that certain behaviors helped you avoid pain. Maybe you convinced yourself that procrastinating would help you delay feelings of failure. Or you believed that avoiding relationships would protect you from heartbreak. Perhaps you held back from speaking your truth because it felt easier to stay quiet than risk conflict. In those moments, those choices made sense. They were your brain's way of protecting you. But what once kept you safe is now keeping you stuck. And that's what we mistakenly call self-sabotage, the act of holding on to outdated survival mechanisms that no longer serve you. Your mind is wired to avoid pain, and it doesn't always distinguish between what's uncomfortable and what's unsafe. That's why positive changes can sometimes feel threatening. When you start moving toward a better life, your subconscious mind may resist, not because you're incapable, but because your mind isn't sure that the change is safe. This is why you might find yourself resisting the very things you claim to want. You may say you want to be healthy, yet you can't break free from self-destructive habits. You may say you want love, yet you push people away. You may say you want success, yet you consistently avoid the work that would get you there. On the surface, it seems like you're just sabotaging yourself. But beneath it, what's really happening is fear. Fear that if you change, you will lose something you once believed you needed. Your mind is always trying to keep you in familiar territory, because familiarity feels safe. Even if that familiarity is painful, it's predictable. And to your subconscious, predictable is preferable to unknown. You might be stuck in a cycle that's miserable, but if you've been there long enough, your mind will resist breaking free. It doesn't matter that you're unhappy. What matters is that you know how to survive there. This is why changing your life isn't just about pushing yourself harder. It's not about trying to force your way out of old patterns. The real key to breaking free from self-sabotage is understanding why those patterns exist in the first place. When you stop blaming yourself and start getting curious about what your mind is trying to protect you from, you begin to find the answers you've been searching for. You might discover that you avoid relationships because your heart still remembers the pain of being betrayed. You might realize that you sabotage your career because deep down, you're afraid of being seen. And being seen feels vulnerable. You may procrastinate because if you never fully commit to something, you can't fully fail. These patterns aren't proof that you're broken. They're proof that you've survived. They're evidence that your mind has been working hard to shield you from pain. But survival isn't the same as thriving. You can't build a fulfilling life if you're constantly working to avoid discomfort. At some point, you have to recognize that growth requires you to step outside the safe and familiar. Change asks you to trust yourself in ways you never have before. To break free from these patterns, you must meet your mind where it is. You can't expect yourself to suddenly stop feeling afraid or uncertain. But what you can do is begin to show your mind that change is safe. You can start small, with tiny acts of courage that prove to yourself that you can handle discomfort. Maybe it's speaking up when you'd normally stay quiet. Maybe it's committing to something even though you're afraid of failing. Maybe it's finally giving yourself permission to step away from a toxic relationship, knowing you are strong enough to face the unknown. Each of these choices is a message to your subconscious mind. I'm safe here. I can handle this. The more you build this inner trust, the easier it becomes to stop running from your fears. Over time, you'll realize that the things you thought were impossible are within your reach. And not because you forced yourself to be fearless, but because you gave yourself the chance to prove your strength. There is no such thing as self-sabotage. Every choice you've made was designed to protect you. But now, you don't need protection. You need to move forward. The walls you've built around yourself may have kept you safe, but they are not your home. Your home is on the other side of those walls, where your courage, your growth, and your purpose are waiting for you. You are not your patterns. You are not your past. The fear you feel isn't proof that you're weak. It's proof that you're growing, and you are strong enough to choose something better. Even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's uncertain, you are ready to climb your mountain. And when you do, you will see that the only thing that was ever standing in your way was your belief that you couldn't. Chapter 4. What disturbs you can set you free. The things that trigger you, the moments that make your heart race, your voice tighten, or your body go numb, are not accidents. They aren't random annoyances or meaningless disruptions. They are clues, signposts, pointing you directly toward the parts of yourself that need healing. The moments that shake you the most are revealing the places where you still carry pain. And if you pay attention, you'll find that these triggers are actually trying to guide you home. A trigger is your body's way of alerting you to something that feels unsafe. It's an internal alarm that sounds when something in your present reminds you of something painful from your past. Sometimes that pain is obvious, like the anxiety that rises when someone criticizes you because it reminds you of being judged as a child. Other times, the connection isn't as clear. You may find yourself becoming irritated in situations that don't seem significant, yet those reactions are rooted in something deeper, an old belief that was formed when you were hurt or rejected. Triggers feel overwhelming because they awaken emotions that were never fully processed. When something triggers you, your mind and body react as though you're reliving that original pain. Your heart races, your muscles tense, and your thoughts spiral, not because you're weak, but because your body is still carrying the energy of that unhealed wound. Triggers are reminders that there's a part of you that hasn't been resolved, a part of you that is still waiting to feel safe again. The instinct when you feel triggered is often to avoid it. You might withdraw, push people away, or lash out. You might turn to distractions, convincing yourself that if you stay busy enough, the feelings will pass. But ignoring your triggers doesn't make them go away, it only gives them more power. The emotions that live inside you will find a way to rise until you are willing to face them. The discomfort you feel when you're triggered isn't there to punish you. It's there to reveal what still needs your attention. If you resist it, it will continue to follow you. If you face it, you will begin to understand yourself in ways you never have before. Your triggers are showing you the places where you need to set better boundaries. They're revealing the wounds you've been carrying for too long. They're calling you to become someone who no longer lives at the mercy of old fears. If you can shift your perspective, if you can see your triggers not as enemies but as guides, you will begin to unlock parts of yourself that have been buried for years. Healing your triggers doesn't happen by avoiding what scares you. It happens by learning to sit with it. The next time you feel triggered, instead of pushing the feeling away, pause and pay attention. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? Where is this coming from? What belief is being challenged? If you follow the discomfort, you'll start to uncover the story behind it. And the story is the key. Maybe you're triggered by people who seem too confident because it reminds you of a time when you were made to feel small. Maybe you're triggered by rejection because it reawakens the belief that you're unworthy of love. Maybe you find yourself getting defensive in conversations because, deep down, you're afraid that being misunderstood will make you invisible. These reactions are not random. They are windows into the experiences that shaped you and the pain you have yet to release. The power of triggers is that they expose the gap between who you are now and the parts of yourself that still believe you are stuck in the past. Triggers show you where you haven't yet realized your own strength. The fear you feel isn't a sign that you're incapable, it's a sign that you're being invited to grow. Healing your triggers isn't about forcing yourself to get over it. It's about learning to respond differently. When you feel triggered, your instinct may be to panic, shut down, or react impulsively. But the more you slow down and observe the feeling without judgment, the more you begin to realize that you are not the pain you feel. You are the one witnessing it. The more you allow yourself to experience the discomfort without letting it control you, the more you begin to build resilience. Every time you face a trigger with awareness, you teach your mind and body that you are safe now. Each time you stay present instead of running away, you rewrite the old story that told you pain was something you couldn't handle. The more you do this, the less power those old wounds will have over you. Each trigger is a message a signal that there's something inside you asking to be seen, felt, and released. If you're willing to sit with those feelings, even when they're painful, you'll start to realize that what's on the other side isn't more suffering. It's freedom. Freedom from the cycles that have kept you repeating the same patterns. Freedom from the fear that keeps you from trusting yourself. Freedom from the belief that you are too broken to change. The strength you're looking for isn't outside of you. It's already within you. Every time you face a trigger and respond with compassion instead of avoidance, you are proving to yourself that you can handle what you once believed you couldn't. You're teaching yourself that you are safe, capable, and strong. Your triggers are not here to control you. They are here to set you free. And when you finally embrace them, you will discover that they were never trying to hurt you. They were trying to guide you back to yourself. Chapter 5: Mastering Your Emotions. Emotional intelligence is not something you are born with or without. It's something you build, something you learn, and something you develop through practice. It's the skill that allows you to understand your emotions, regulate them, and respond to the world in a way that reflects your best self. Without emotional intelligence, you may find yourself controlled by impulses, overwhelmed by your feelings, or constantly at odds with the people around you. But when you begin to develop this skill, your life starts to change. Not because you stop feeling difficult emotions, but because you learn how to manage them. The first step in building emotional intelligence is learning to recognize what you're feeling. Most people move through life reacting to their emotions without understanding what's driving them. You might feel angry and assume that the person in front of you is the problem, when in reality, your anger is rooted in something deeper. Maybe you feel disrespected, unheard, or overwhelmed. Emotions are never just surface-level reactions. They are messengers, pointing you toward your deeper needs and beliefs. To recognize your emotions, you must start by paying attention. When you feel overwhelmed, pause and ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? The answer isn't always obvious. Sometimes anger is masking hurt. Sometimes sadness is disguising fear. Sometimes frustration is covering up exhaustion. If you can slow down and get curious about what's happening inside you, you can begin to uncover the truth behind your emotions. Once you've identified what you're feeling, the next step is learning to sit with those emotions without judgment. Most people's instinct is to run from discomfort, to numb it, distract from it, or deny that it's there. But when you push your emotions away, you're not actually getting rid of them. You're just burying them deeper. The feelings you avoid will keep resurfacing until you give them the attention they're asking for. Instead of avoiding your emotions, try to create space for them. Sit with your discomfort. Let yourself feel anxious without trying to fix it right away. Let yourself feel frustrated without trying to force it down. Emotions are like waves. They rise, they peak, and they fall away. If you can allow yourself to feel them fully, they will pass through you instead of getting stuck inside you. The more you practice sitting with your emotions, the less control they will have over you. Emotional intelligence isn't about eliminating uncomfortable feelings. It's about learning to respond to those feelings in a way that aligns with your values. You might still feel triggered, overwhelmed, or upset, but instead of reacting impulsively, you'll be able to pause, reflect, and choose a response that reflects who you want to be. One of the most important parts of emotional intelligence is learning to separate your emotions from your identity. Just because you feel afraid doesn't mean you are weak. Just because you feel angry doesn't mean you are out of control. Just because you feel unworthy doesn't mean you have no value. Emotions are experiences, not definitions. They are temporary states, not permanent truths. When you start to observe your emotions instead of identifying with them, you gain the power to respond to them intentionally. You stop being someone who is controlled by your feelings and become someone who can understand them, manage them, and move through them. Emotional intelligence also requires learning to take responsibility for your feelings. It's easy to blame other people for your emotions, to believe that if someone hadn't said something hurtful or if life hadn't thrown you unexpected challenges, you wouldn't be feeling this way. But the truth is, your emotions are not created by other people. They are created by the meaning you assign to what happens to you. Two people can go through the same situation and have completely different emotional reactions. What makes the difference isn't the event itself. It's the thoughts, beliefs, and interpretations that shape how you experience it. When you take responsibility for your emotions, you begin to realize that you have more power than you think. You may not be able to control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. Another key element of emotional intelligence is learning how to communicate your emotions in a healthy way. When you bottle up your feelings, they don't disappear, they fester. And when they finally rise to the surface, they often come out in destructive ways, in passive-aggressive remarks, in emotional outbursts, or in resentment that poisons your relationships. Learning to express your emotions honestly and clearly is one of the most powerful ways to build better connections with the people in your life. Communicating your emotions doesn't mean unloading every feeling you have onto other people. It means learning to articulate what you're feeling in a way that encourages understanding instead of conflict. Instead of blaming or accusing, you express your feelings by focusing on what's true for you. I feel hurt when I don't feel heard. I'm feeling overwhelmed and I need some space. When you speak from this place, you invite connection rather than division. Finally, emotional intelligence is about learning to trust yourself. Every time you face an emotion and handle it with courage, you are proving to yourself that you are stronger than you believed. Each time you sit with discomfort instead of running from it, you are building resilience. Every time you choose to respond with awareness, instead of reacting impulsively, you are gaining control over your life. Developing emotional intelligence isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming aware. Chapter 6. Closing Old Chapters. Letting go isn't something that happens in a single moment. It's something you learn to do again and again. It's not about pretending things didn't happen or forcing yourself to forget. Letting go is about releasing the grip that old experiences still have on you, and deciding that those moments will no longer define who you are. The past has a powerful way of staying with you. Memories linger, old pain resurfaces, and you can find yourself caught in a cycle where you keep reliving the same feelings long after the original experience is gone. This happens because your mind clings to unresolved emotions, things you never fully processed. Things you pushed down because they felt too heavy to face. Over time, those suppressed feelings start to shape your behavior. They influence the way you think, the way you react, and the way you see yourself. Even when you're trying to move forward, those old patterns can quietly pull you back. The reason it's so hard to release the past is because pain has a purpose. When you've been hurt, your mind holds on to that memory as a warning. It wants to keep you safe. So it replays what happened over and over again, reminding you to be careful, to protect yourself, to never let that happen again. But what starts as self-protection can become a prison. You may find yourself stuck in the same cycles, building walls where you should be building bridges, avoiding risks that could lead to growth, or convincing yourself that your future will be no different than your past. Letting go doesn't mean denying what happened. It doesn't mean dismissing your pain or pretending you weren't hurt. It means accepting that you can't change the past, but you can change what it means to you. You can decide that your pain is not the most important thing about you. You can decide that your past is not a prediction of your future. One of the hardest things about releasing the past is learning to forgive, not just other people, but yourself. There may be moments you look back on and feel regret, for what you did, for what you didn't do, for the chances you didn't take or the boundaries you failed to hold. But regret is not a punishment. It's a reminder. It's your mind's way of showing you how much you've grown. The fact that you feel regret now means that you've evolved, that you're seeing things from a wiser, stronger perspective. The regret isn't proof that you failed. It's proof that you've changed. Forgiving yourself means understanding that you were doing the best you could with the tools and knowledge you had at the time. Maybe you reacted in anger because you didn't know how to express your hurt. Maybe you held on to something too long because you were afraid to let go. Maybe you kept repeating the same pattern because it was all you knew. Whatever it was, you don't need to punish yourself for it anymore. What you needed back then was not shame. It was understanding. And what you need now is compassion. Forgiving others is just as essential. This doesn't mean condoning what happened or excusing the harm that was done to you. It doesn't mean pretending that people didn't hurt you. Forgiveness isn't about minimizing the pain. It's about releasing the hold that pain has on you. When you refuse to forgive, you stay tied to what happened. The anger, resentment, and bitterness don't just affect the people you hold them against. They poison your own heart. You carry that weight with you everywhere you go, and it limits your ability to move forward. Forgiveness is not something you do for other people. It's something you do for yourself. It's your way of saying, I will no longer allow what happened to dictate my life. It's a decision to stop replaying the hurt, stop reliving the betrayal, and stop allowing that pain to take up space in your mind. Forgiveness is you choosing peace over bitterness. It's you reclaiming your power. Another part of releasing the past is learning to detach from the stories you've told yourself. Sometimes we hold on to pain because it's become part of our identity. You may have convinced yourself that you're always the one who's overlooked, the one who's not good enough, the one who always gets hurt. These stories may have been true once, but they are not true now. You are not the same person you were when those things happened. You are stronger now. You are wiser now. And you have the power to write a new story. To let go of your old stories, you have to question them. Ask yourself, is this really who I am now? Is this belief still true? Or is it something I've carried for too long? What would my life look like if I stopped believing this? The moment you begin to challenge these old narratives, you give yourself permission to become something greater. Letting go also means creating space for what's next. When you hold on to pain, you fill your mind and heart with memories of what's been lost, leaving little room for new experiences, relationships, and opportunities to enter. Healing requires you to empty out the old so you can make space for the new. This isn't always easy. It requires you to release what's familiar, even if that familiarity is painful. But you cannot build a better future while clinging to a past that's already behind you. You may not feel ready to let go all at once, and that's okay. Releasing the past isn't about forcing yourself to move on before you're ready. It's about taking small steps, choosing, moment by moment, to lean into your present rather than your past. It's about reminding yourself that today is not yesterday, and the future can look different from what's behind you. Letting go is a process. Some days it will feel easy, like a weight has finally lifted. Other days it will feel impossible, like your mind keeps dragging you back to the same memories. But every time you choose to stay present, every time you refuse to let old pain dictate your choices, you are breaking free. You are building something stronger. The past may have shaped you, but it does not have to define you. The memories that once held you back can become reminders of your strength, proof of everything you've survived and everything you've learned. The mistakes you made can become lessons that help you grow. The pain you experienced can become the very thing that leads you to deeper compassion, greater resilience, and a stronger sense of purpose. You are not bound by what happened to you. The past may be part of your story, but it is not the end of it. The moment you choose to let go, to forgive, to release, to soften your grip on what's gone, you give yourself permission to step fully into the life that's waiting for you. Letting go is not losing, it's gaining. It's gaining freedom, peace, and the ability to fully show up in your life. It's choosing to no longer be defined by what you've been through, and instead be defined by who you are becoming. Chapter 7. Creating the life you want. Building a new future isn't about starting over. It's about starting from where you are right now. It's about deciding that your past doesn't get to dictate what comes next. It's about understanding that you are not stuck, you are not powerless, and you are not broken. You are in the process of becoming someone new, and that process starts the moment you decide to change. The hardest part of building a new future is trusting that things can be different. When you've spent years feeling stuck or defeated, it's easy to believe that change isn't possible. You may have tried before and failed. You may have told yourself that some people are meant to succeed, and you're just not one of them. But none of that is true. The truth is that the person you are today isn't the person you were before. You're stronger now. You've learned things you didn't know back then. You are more aware of what you want and what you no longer want. You are ready to create something new, and this time, you will do it differently. The first step in building a new future is learning to see yourself as capable of change. You have to start believing that you are strong enough to create the life you want. Not because you've never struggled, but because you've struggled and survived. The challenges you've faced have prepared you for this moment. The pain you've experienced has given you wisdom. The doubts you've carried have taught you resilience. Everything you've been through has shaped you into someone who is ready to build something better. To create a new future, you have to know what you want. This doesn't mean you need to have every detail figured out, but you do need a clear sense of the kind of life you want to build. Ask yourself, what do I want my life to feel like? What kind of person do I want to become? What do I want to be proud of 5 years from now? These questions are not about pressure. They are about permission. They are about giving yourself the freedom to imagine something greater than what you've experienced before. Once you've started to imagine that future, you need to make room for it. This means letting go of the parts of your life that no longer align with where you're going. You may need to release old habits that have kept you stuck. You may need to walk away from relationships that pull you back into old patterns. You may need to say no to things that feel familiar but no longer feel right. Growth always requires space, and sometimes that space is created by letting go. Creating a new future also means learning to trust the process. Change doesn't happen overnight, and there will be moments when you feel like nothing is working. There will be times when you question if you're making progress at all. In those moments, it's important to remember that growth is not always visible. Sometimes the most important changes are the quiet shifts, the moments when you choose a new thought instead of an old one, the days when you push forward even when doubt creeps in, the quiet decisions that build your confidence over time. You won't always feel motivated. You won't always feel sure of yourself. But what matters isn't how you feel, it's what you choose to do in those moments. Building a new future is about showing up even when it's hard. It's about doing the work even when you're unsure. It's about trusting that each small step is leading you somewhere better, even if you can't see it yet. One of the most powerful things you can do when building a new future is to create habits that reflect the life you want to live. It's easy to focus on big goals, losing weight, building a career, improving your relationships. But the truth is that real change happens in your daily choices. Your future isn't built in a single leap. It's built in the moments when you decide to choose differently. It's built in the mornings when you get out of bed instead of hitting snooze, in the conversations where you express yourself honestly instead of shutting down, in the moments when you keep going even though giving up feels easier. Every habit you build is a message to yourself about who you are becoming. When you choose to eat better, you're telling yourself that your health matters. When you make time for self-reflection, you're telling yourself that your mind and heart are worthy of attention. When you stay committed to your goals, you're reminding yourself that you are capable of following through. These habits may seem small, but they are the foundation for the life you are creating. Another important part of building a new future is surrounding yourself with people who support your growth. The people you allow into your life will influence how you think, how you feel, and what you believe is possible. If you surround yourself with people who constantly focus on their limitations, it will be harder for you to believe in your own potential. But if you choose people who believe in growth, resilience, and possibility, their energy will inspire you to keep moving forward. Building a new future also means being willing to fail and learning to see failure as part of the process. You will make mistakes. You will try things that don't work. You will face setbacks and disappointments. But failure is not proof that you aren't capable. It's proof that you're trying. Every mistake is teaching you something you need to know. Every disappointment is revealing what doesn't work so you can find what does. Failure is not the end of the road. It's part of the path that leads you to where you're meant to be. As you build your new future, you may find yourself grieving the life you're leaving behind, even if that life was painful. Letting go of what's familiar, even when it's unhealthy, can feel like a loss. You may feel nostalgic for old habits, relationships, or patterns that once felt safe. That's normal. Grieving your old life is part of the process. It's how you make peace with what's behind you so you can move forward. The future you are building will not look perfect, and it's not supposed to. Life is not about reaching some flawless version of yourself. It's about learning to show up as you are, to trust that you are always growing, and to believe that no matter what you've been through, you are still capable of building something beautiful. You don't have to wait until you feel ready to start. You don't need to have all the answers before you begin. The most important thing you can do is start right where you are, with whatever courage, clarity, and strength you have today. Every step you take, no matter how small, is a step toward the life you are meant to live. Your new future doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to happen all at once. It just has to start with a choice, a decision to believe that you are capable of more, a decision to stop letting your past hold you back, a decision to start believing in the person you are becoming. Your life doesn't change when everything falls into place. It changes when you decide to begin and when you believe that the person you're becoming is strong enough to make it to the other side. Chapter 8. Turning Struggle into Strength. The shift from self-sabotage to self-mastery is not something that happens instantly. It's something you build slowly, through conscious choices and consistent effort. It's the process of becoming someone who no longer works against themselves, but instead acts in alignment with their highest potential. It's about turning your self-doubt into self-trust, your fear into courage, and your pain into wisdom. Self-sabotage doesn't disappear just because you recognize it. Knowing why you do something isn't the same as changing the behavior. Understanding your patterns is just the beginning. The real transformation happens when you decide to face those patterns, interrupt them, and choose a different response. The shift to self-mastery is made up of those moments, the ones where you feel the familiar pull to avoid, to procrastinate, or to give up, but instead you choose to stay present and try again. Mastering yourself begins with awareness. You have to recognize when you are acting out of fear instead of love. You have to become familiar with the thoughts that hold you back. The ones that tell you that you're not good enough, that you'll fail anyway, or that you're better off staying where it feels safe. Those thoughts are not truth. They are echoes from a past version of yourself. And once you recognize that, you can stop letting them dictate your choices. You have to become aware of your triggers, the things that send you spiraling into old patterns, and learn how to respond differently. Maybe you know that criticism makes you withdraw, or that uncertainty makes you sabotage your progress. Instead of letting those triggers control you, self-mastery is about noticing them in the moment and consciously choosing a different path. Mastery also requires you to be honest with yourself, radically honest. You have to stop blaming your circumstances for why you haven't grown. You have to stop telling yourself that you'll change when life feels easier, or that your excuses are valid. Self-mastery means admitting that you have played a role in your own suffering, not because you're weak, but because you've been doing what felt safest. And now, it's time to choose differently. Taking responsibility for your choices is one of the hardest steps in this process. It's easier to believe that other people, bad luck, or uncontrollable circumstances are to blame for where you are. But the truth is, your power lies in what you choose from this moment forward. When you realize that you are in control of your responses, no matter what has happened, you reclaim your strength. Self-mastery isn't about perfection. It's not about never feeling afraid or never falling back into old patterns. It's about learning how to catch yourself sooner. It's about noticing when you're slipping back into self-sabotage and choosing to interrupt the pattern. It's about learning how to forgive yourself when you fall short and then deciding to keep going anyway. A crucial part of this journey is learning to reframe your failures. In the past, you may have seen failure as proof that you're not capable or as a reason to give up. But in reality, failure is feedback. It's showing you what doesn't work. It's revealing what needs to change. Every failure is an opportunity to learn something new about yourself, and the people who succeed are the ones who refuse to stop learning. Self-mastery also means learning to manage your emotions. When you allow your emotions to control you, they will pull you away from your goals. When you let anger drive your decisions or fear keep you frozen, you end up sabotaging your own potential. But when you learn to recognize your emotions as temporary, when you allow yourself to feel them without acting on them, you gain the power to make better decisions. Mastery isn't about suppressing your feelings. It's about giving yourself space to process them without allowing them to dictate your behavior. Another essential piece of self-mastery is learning how to stay committed. Anyone can start a new habit, but the ability to follow through, especially when it's hard, inconvenient, or uncomfortable, is what separates those who change their lives from those who stay stuck. Self-mastery means learning how to motivate yourself when you feel uninspired, how to show up when you don't feel ready, and how to keep going even when you aren't seeing immediate results. You will have days when you doubt yourself. You will face setbacks that make you question whether you're capable of real change. You will feel tempted to slip back into your comfort zone, not because you've failed, but because growth is uncomfortable, and your mind will want to retreat. Mastery is about choosing to move forward anyway, about trusting that you are stronger than the part of you that wants to give up. Mastery also requires patience. Change doesn't happen overnight. The patterns you've been living with, the beliefs that have shaped you, won't disappear immediately. But with time and consistency, they will weaken. Each time you choose a healthier response, each time you face a fear instead of running from it, each time you challenge an old belief, you are rewriting your mind. And slowly, the new patterns will become stronger than the old ones. Self-mastery is not about changing who you are. It's about returning to who you've always been beneath the fear, the doubt, and the pain. It's about realizing that you were never broken. You were simply surviving. Now, you are learning to thrive. There will come a moment when you look back and see how far you've come. When the habits that once felt impossible have become automatic, when the thoughts that once controlled you have lost their power, when the person you used to be feels distant. That moment won't happen because you suddenly figured it all out. It will happen because you kept showing up, one choice at a time. The climb from self-sabotage to self-mastery is not about conquering yourself. It's about learning to trust yourself. It's about knowing that no matter what happens, you can handle it. It's about knowing that you are stronger than your fear, wiser than your doubts, and more powerful than you ever believed. You are not your worst moments. You are not the person who gave up, or the person who made mistakes, or the person who doubted themselves. You are the person who kept going. You are the person who decided to rise. Self-mastery is not a destination. It's a way of living. It's the choice to show up for yourself every day. It's the commitment to keep growing, even when it feels impossible. And most of all, it's the belief that you are worthy of becoming the person you were always meant to be. That's a wrap on You Are Your Greatest Obstacle, breaking free from your own limits. But this isn't the end. It's just the beginning. We hope this journey has sparked new insights, challenged old beliefs, and empowered you to step into your strength. Now it's your turn to take what you've learned and put it into action. If this book resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's start conversations that inspire change. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment to share your breakthroughs, reflections, or even the challenges you're working to overcome. Your story could be the encouragement someone else needs. And if you're ready for more insights, inspiration, and strategies to keep growing, be sure to subscribe so you never miss out. Thank you for being part of this journey. Now go